the Gentiles, and here's why. Paul had a particular specific calling. It was to the Gentiles, and he says in verse 12, Brethren, I beseech you, be as I am, for I am as ye are. Ye have, wait a minute, I'm looking at the wrong, excuse me. I'm chapter 2, verse 7. But contrariwise, when they saw that the gospel of the uncircumcision, which was a term for Gentiles, since Abraham, the father of the Jews, had been given the sign of circumcision, and Abraham's son Isaac received that sign, and his son Jacob received that sign, and that was instituted into the law of Moses, but it was here before the law of Moses. So uncircumcision was a sign, circumcision was a sign to the Jews that they were accepting the covenant of God there in the 17th chapter of Genesis. And he says, the gospel of the uncircumcision was committed unto me as the gospel of the circumcision. That is a term for Jews, as the gospel of the circumcision was unto Peter. And Paul talks about those people at Ephesus were called the uncircumcision by the circumcision. They were called uncircumcision by the Jews. And he speaks of that we're circumcised along with the Colossian Gentile church, we're circumcised with a circumcision made without hands. Now, let's go back over here to Acts, the 26th chapter. He says, delivering thee from the people, verse 17, from the Gentiles unto whom now I send thee. And here's what I'm sending you to the Gentiles for, to open their eyes. They were blind. They couldn't see the truth. I didn't allow them to see the truth. I told the Jews every time they would go into some Gentile land, kill everybody here. Unless I had a certain particular Gentile there, like Rahab the harlot, or Ruth the Moabite, or Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, which were all believers. He says to open their eyes, to turn them from darkness to light, to bring them out of the prison of darkness to the light. Phylake is the word prison, division of light and darkness. And them from darkness to light, and from the power of Satan unto God, that they may receive forgiveness of sin. It's amazing that he mentions darkness to light and then mentions forgiveness. Because darkness to light is bringing out of prison. And then when he says that they may receive forgiveness, which is the word aphesis, meaning to pardon and release from any kind of bonds that binds us to anything, to something, or to release from a prison of some sort. And that's what a pardon is. A pardon is something that's given to a man in prison, and it's given to him as though it had never happened. So he says, here's my purpose, is to bring the Gentiles from darkness to light, and that they can be pardoned and released from prison, and inheritance among them which are sanctified by faith that is in me. And then the verse I like in the Old Testament, which goes with this one, is Isaiah the 42nd chapter. Isaiah 42nd chapter. And I'm reading these so I can read some other verses out of the Old Testament. Now, all right. Now, I love this verse here, verse 6. In Isaiah, I'm going to say it again until you get sick and tired of it. And I promise you, if you get sick and tired of it, you'll remember it. Isaiah 42. Isaiah 42. I'm going to keep on. Isaiah is the Old Testament Paul. Everything he said in his book was about God destroying Israel. He preached to Israel, northern Israel, and told them God was going to destroy them and carry them away into captivity, and that the time would come when the Gentiles would inherit the mantle or the position of the Jews with God, and they would come to the light. He says that through his entire book over and over and over. You want to know what Isaiah is about? It's about the Gentiles coming to the light. It's about God rejecting the Jews for going after all their idolatry, their Baal and their Grove, their Shemash, their Molech, and all the rest of the idolatry, the gods, the Dagon god, the gods of the Amorites, the Hittites, the Perizzites, that they went after all of them. And he says here in verse 6, and I like these two verses, the verse there in Acts 26 and this verse here, or these two verses here. Those set of verses and these show that this is the Gentiles. He says in verse 6, and I the Lord have called thee in righteousness, and will hold thine hand, and will keep thee and give thee for a covenant of the people, for a light of the Gentiles, to open the blind eyes. That's exactly what Paul said, didn't he? He said, so they can see. They've been blind. To open the blind eyes, to bring out the prisoners from the prison. Good grief. Why can't people see that? And them that sit in darkness, the Gentiles couldn't see, out of the prison house. Now, boy, there's so many verses concerning light and darkness, and I want us just to read a few of them here, just so we can see. Look here in Psalms 27. Go over to Psalms 27. I want to read a few of them so we can read them. I'm going to get as elementary as I can. I had considered not reading these, but maybe this will help us. Every time you see the light of the Lord, it's talking about coming to truth. That's what it's talking about. When you see darkness, that's a man that's blinded and he cannot see. Let me get a drink of water. And I believe if we'll read these things together, we'll see what he's talking about. Here in Psalms, 27th chapter, 27 verse 1. The Lord is my light, truth, and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? The Lord is the strength of my life. Of whom shall I be afraid? Look over here in Psalms 36. I just want to read some of these to you. Psalms 36 and verse 9. Let's read down to it from verse 7. How excellent is thy loving kindness, O God! Therefore the children of men put their trust under the shadow of thy wings. They shall be abundantly satisfied with the fatness of thy house, and thou shalt make them drink of the river of thy pleasures. For with me is the fountain of life. In thy light shall we see light. Shall we see light? When we're in the truth, we'll be able to see the truth. And these are those that were once blind. And look over here in chapter 37 and verse 6. Chapter 37 and verse 6. Let's read 5 and 6. Commit thy way unto the Lord, and trust also in him, and he shall bring it to pass. And he shall bring forth thy righteousness as the light, as the truth. Righteousness and light are equated as one and the same. If we walk in the light as he is in the light, we have fellowship one with another. And the blood of Jesus Christ his Son cleanses us from all sin. He shall bring forth thy righteousness as the light, and thy judgment as the noonday. Reminds me of Psalms 31. He says that 1,000 shall fall at thy side and 10,000 at thy right hand. He talks about thou shalt not be afraid for the terror by night, nor for the arrow that flieth by day, nor the pestilence that walk in the darkness, for the destruction that wasteth at noonday. Because you're in the light. If we're in the light, we don't have to be afraid. We don't have to be afraid of him that can destroy the body, because we've got something better hereafter. And fear leaves us. The fear of man leaves us the longer you live, because you realize, well, I don't have nothing here that I want, including my body. It's wore out. It's getting sick. It's getting old. Rest in the Lord and wait patiently for him. Fret not thyself because of him who prospereth in his way, because of the man who bringeth wicked devices to pass. He's saying, we're in the light. We don't have to worry and sit around fretting about men who are living in darkness and they're loaded with money and things and stuff. But we do that, don't we? It's the light that makes us free from darkness. Look over here in chapter 43. Look at 43 and verse 3. Look at 43. And I'm just simply bringing these out so they can have some kind of emphasis. Well, let's read down to it. Judge me, O God, and plead my cause. And the word plead is the word rube. It means to fight for me, or reeb, R-I-Y-B. R-I-Y-B. It's a derivative of the word rube, R-U-W-B. It means fight for me, grapple for me, fight my enemies against an ungodly nation. O deliver me from the deceitful and unjust man, for thou art the God of my strength. Why dost thou cast me off? Why go I mourning because of the oppression of the enemy? O send out thy light and thy truth. Remember, he that doeth the truth cometh to the light. That's not something John invented in John 3:21. This is all through the Old Testament. Truth is equated with light. And he says, send out thy light. And light is what you have to turn on so you can see. And God has to turn on the spiritual light. Let them lead me. Let them bring me into thy holy hill and to thy tabernacles. The holy hill of God is Zion. And we are heavenly. We've come to Mount Zion, heavenly Jerusalem, the church of the firstborn, haven't we? Let's read some more of these. Look here in Psalms, the 49th chapter. Go to the 49th chapter. Look at verse 19. 49. Let's read down to it. Look at verse 16. Be not thou afraid when one is made rich. If you notice, do you notice in the previous verses, he's talking about people are rich, they're in darkness, and you're in the light, and you're not rich, except you're rich spiritually. He said that in previous verses. He's going to say, don't be afraid of the rich and the people that have wealth and money. And the psalmist writes all through here about this very concept. He says, and when he dieth, he says, be not afraid when one is made rich, when the glory of his house is increased. Boy, it's awful hard not to be envious of somebody else, isn't it? Especially when they got tons of money and then they have to go to hell. How hardly shall a rich man enter the kingdom. For when he dieth, he shall carry nothing away. We were sitting at dinner today and I said, Bill Gates cannot possibly comprehend. Here he is, one of the richest men in the world. He's worth $48 billion. That is $1 million 48,000 times. Can you imagine that? He's made $1 million 48,000 times. I can't even comprehend that. But he don't get to keep that but for another, what is he, 55? Something like that. He don't get to keep it for 25 more years, and then it's not his anymore, and all he's got's hell then. That's a very sobering thought. Would you like to have $1 billion for the next 25 years and then go to hell? How about would you like to have $1 trillion for the next 25 years and then go to hell? No, I don't want, no. How would you like to have nothing and get to go to heaven? Yeah, I'll take that. If you ask him that, I wonder what he'd say. For when he dieth, he shall carry nothing away. His glory shall not descend after him. He's not going to have any glory where he's going, is he? He's not going to descend down there with him. Oh, hey, I'm in hell. Hey, everybody, give me a big round of applause. Hey, my name's Elvis Presley. I'm Frank Sinatra. Come on, give me a big round of applause. I'm Michael Jackson. No, they ain't going to be applauding anybody there. Though while he lived, he blessed his soul, and men will praise thee when thou doest well for yourself. They'll love you, man. The rich hath many friends. He shall go to the generation of his fathers. They shall never see any truth. He's going to go the way his fathers went that taught him